All right, welcome. We have another episode of Real Estate Forums, and we're going to concentrate on the buyer rep agreement today. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. Welcome to the studio. I'm Lauren Fisher. Been doing this a little while. We have the buyer's rep contract. So I use this game called Housing Market. All right. It's got the MLS, quote unquote, on the right side. It has the clients on the left side. This is kind of like a role-playing exercise, right? So Noah Hughes, to make him a client, we're going to fill out a buyer's rep contract. So let's go. Right here, date, today's date. You can push it right here. Look at that. Pop. You're going to have to put the pages on. I think it's 12 last I checked. You put the name in. Buyer is Noah Hughes. Okay, it says individual state trust corporation. We're just going to put Noah Hughes. All right, second buyer. Let's say by chance Noah Hughes and Ava Jackson are buying the same house. Joint tenancy. All right, Ava Jackson. Let's go like that. All right. You go down today's date. 180 days from now, you can actually go here. 180 days from it's really crazy, you know. Wow. Look at that, December 5th, 2026. Pretty easy. Uh, and since that's a Saturday, I mean, we could do Friday. Fuck it. I typically don't like using weekend days for anything, but I mean, you could, it's just going to expire on Saturday. Who cares? If you're, into your game, probably should be done well before December 5th. So this date honestly really doesn't matter. Okay, so buyer agrees to pay broker a retainer fee of I don't know if it'll let you put NA. I don't think it will. So you put in 0 or just leave it blank and put a line through it. You could literally go. It won't let me do it. Buyer shall pay broker as broker's compensation. 2.7. Typical buyers, but that's negotiable. If you want to pay your agent more because you know that they're doing a better job and they're worth it, you pay them more. If you want to pay them less, I mean, what's the worst that I would say? No. I'm pretty firm on 2.7, but some people, especially when you're working for friends and stuff, you might lower it down. It's negotiable. All things are negotiable. This line right here, I would never put 0, but whichever is greater is here. So, but I would leave that one blank and I would one line it. I would also leave this one blank and one line it because I don't like putting a value on something that doesn't apply. That can get kind of dangerous, but I think they did change the forms to whichever is greater at some point. Okay, so within 180 days after the contract is expired, if the buyer purchases any property that they've looked at with the broker, I'm just kind of translating it to human language, or specifically brought to the attention from the broker to the buyer, As long as the broker has identified this, this can hurt the buyer. If you go around behind my back and buy a property that we looked at, you're spitting on this contract. That's pretty much how that works. And that's punishable by law. Now, depending on how well I like you and how much I need money is depending on whether I'm actually going to go after it or not. Because it's really a bad taste. You don't want to, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to over lawyer your clients because, I'm sorry, that's lame. But it's also not fair to the real estate agent to do what this is describing. So some agents are going to crucify you for doing this, and some are just going to be meh, wasn't working anyways. I want to work for people I want to work for. It's pretty much when I take on a buyer, this is me filling out a application, and when you sign it, you have approved me to work for you. I'm working for you. This is your contract and my contract. This right here kind of, to me, gives realtors a little bit of a cringe look. I don't like it. But and then this, I think, is like $4.99, $5.99. All right, $5.99. So that's typical Keller Williams. That's just paying Keller Williams. I also have to pay some of my money out of this, which is really crazy, right? Because what ends up happening is I get paid 2.7%. So let's say 2.7% times the typical $500,000 house. Why did it do that? All right, we'll try this the way that I know how to do it. 500,000 times 0.027. All right, so on a $500,000 house, I'm going to make that much. This is what you think that I made, right? But wait, there's more. 1% of $500,000 is $5,000. That goes to the brokerage. And now I pretty much roughly have to divide that. Well, I pretty much have to subtract another $5,000 for tax because they're taxing me on the whole $13,500. So that's what I'm actually making. Now, if you work a month in any sort of factory job, I would make more than that in any sort of factory job a month. So that means in order for me to come out ahead, I have to sell more than one house a month to make more money than I make at a factory. So really, the overhead unlimited income of realty is awesome. But honestly, I'd make more at a factory. So there's that. That's a sad reality a lot of real estate agents have to look at. You have to look at that. All right. So if you want to make money that's better than working at a factory, like in my case, you have to know what your numbers are. And to hit my numbers, I have to be in front of people probably 5 times a week, sitting down talking about stuff. So that being said, I figured since we were looking at this broker's commission, I also have to pay 2% of this into taxes and fees to my brokerage. So I only get 0.7%. It's crazy, huh? It's crazy. The stuff real estate agents don't talk about. All right, so this right here, I don't like this. They need to fix this because broker is authorized to negotiate and receive compensation paid by seller or a broker representing or assisting seller. Any compensation accepted by broker from seller or broker representing or assisting seller. All right. What is this? What is that? Which one do you check? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even think people are checking these anymore. I think that they just expect that the seller is paying 2.7% and that's it. Like this portion of the form obviously was made by somebody who maybe doesn't do real estate transactions. Because if you read it, what does all redo mean? So does that mean that the seller can decide to pay 2%? Like, which box would I check for the seller to pay all of it? Which box do I check for the seller to pay, whatever they want to pay? And then the buyer picks up the slack. So I would check any, and I think everybody checks any. I don't know. I'd have to look through some records, but I'm pretty sure reduces any obligation of buyer to pay compensation. So the seller is going to pay the 2.7%. And the way that they did this portion of the form, it needs to be fixed. But you're also utilizing a disclosure statement for compensation, which we'll get into in a second, because you do have to use this. So I think a lot of people are just checking whatever here because it's covered on the disclosure statement, or just leaving this blank because they don't care. Because that is like, what is this? It's garbage. All right. So that's one problem that I have with this form. All right. So buyer may not receive compensation for brokerage service provided from any source that exceeds the amount or rate agreed to in this contract. Buyer understands that buyer does not have to pay broker's compensation if buyer signs another valid buyer representation contract or facilitator services agreement after X, under which buyer is obligated to compensate another licensed real estate broker. All right, unless you're looking at other properties that I already showed you with that other one, then you may have to double pay. Buyer's actions in locating a property may affect payment of compensation by sellers and may therefore obligate buyer to pay all or part of the compensation in cash at closing. For example, the act of going through an open house unaccompanied by buyer's broker or licensee representing buyer, signing a purchase agreement through another broker or with owner for sale by owner may require buyer's payment of the full compensation to buyer's broker. Even though you were unaccompanied by the buyer's broker, you still have to pay the buyer's broker. Even if you filled out the paperwork through somebody else, you still have to pay your buyer's broker. Once you sign this contract, you are hiring, no matter who you buy through and who fills out the paperwork, you hired me. So you're paying me. Now, am I going to stick you to it? Keller Williams says I should. But, it's kind of a gray area. It's cringe. I don't like making money by cringe. I don't like that at all. But I also don't like getting swindled. So most of this is going to be residential personal, and we can check this too. I think it's this one, because I think the word reduces is supposed to be in front. Reduces all or any. Like, what's the difference between all and any? Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. They didn't really cover that in school, and it wasn't fucked up when I went in school. They redid these forms last year, and now there's a couple things that are messed up. So buyer's choice for closing services. Do you direct me to get a closing agent, or do you want your own closing agent? My phone is full of closing agents, so I would recommend to check this one. Bloop. Buyer's initials, and in most of the signing things, I think you just click that and boop, puts your initials in. Foreign investment, we're not too worried about that. The guy's not a foreign investor. Neither one of them are. Additional costs. Buyer's going to pay some closing costs. I'm not paying for that. Hopefully the bank is paying for it, but probably not. There's a lot of stuff that comes out of pocket. Approximately 20% down payment. If you're non-FHA, non-VA, if you're just a conventional loan, it's 20% out of pocket. Otherwise, you're paying private mortgage insurance. So you don't want to do that. So it's 20% down. You got that broker's fee we were just talking about. You got a few other fees. There's a lot of fees, and pay them up front. The bank's probably not going to cover them. But private inspection, you're going to pay for that. Warranty, sometimes sellers will throw a warranty in. Agency representation, if the buyer chooses to purchase property listed by the broker, that might turn into dual agency. We were talking about that on the agency form in the Forms 1, we talked about dual agency. That was one of the 4 options provided by the agency disclosure. And if you choose to purchase property listed by my brokerage, I am now in dual agency. We don't have to go re-sign the form again. That form, I just told you about your options, right? But this says again, you're agreeing to it on this. So if you do not agree to this, every house that's listed by my brokerage will not be considered. And, I can see with some brokerages, there might be a little bit of shadiness going on. It's kind of like a used car dealership. You bring in your old car, they underbid. You sell your old car for $700. This has even happened at major dealerships, right? And that's dual agency. They're selling you a car while absorbing your old car, right? So they're buying your car and they're selling a car. That is dual agency, and in especially with used cars, super shady. With major brokerages, I wouldn't. I would definitely be open to any house, anywhere, anytime, with any brokerage, including my own. You want to see it all, man. All right, so Keller Williams Classic Realty, sign. I sign, date. This is all done in the signing app. All right, so other potential buyers. There might be other potential buyers. And according to the disclosure form, the seller may tell us about them or not. They might just want your honest offer. And your honest offer, if you didn't know anybody else was offering, might be a little low. But if you really want it and you're asking and they're like, I don't know, the seller doesn't want us to tell you that there's other offers. Well, if you offer low, you lost it. So, I mean, a lot of this game comes down to how much do you want it, how much you're willing to spend for it, blah, blah, blah. Let's check and make sure we're at the right spot still. All right. So, previous agency relationships. May have had previous agency relationship with a seller or of a property buyer is interested in purchasing. Buyer acknowledges a buyer's broker or licensee representing buyer legally required to keep information regarding the ultimate price and terms the seller would accept and the motivation for selling confidential. That's why we have separate agents. That's why dual agency gets kind of because if I personally am representing the seller and I personally am representing the buyer, that's a problem because I can't 100% either of them. But dual agency in a bigger company, and this goes back to that, what I was talking about before, another agent might be selling that property through my brokerage and I'm the buyer's agent. So it's going to be dual agency doesn't even matter really in that case because they're going to keep stuff confidential like the professional that they are. They cannot do anything at the detriment of their seller because we're in dual agency. And it's weird, but they can't do it. And neither can I say, oh, this buyer really, really wants the property. And the seller's like, oh, really? Well, then they'll offer $30,000 more. I can't do that. Confidentiality is kind of a thing. All right, so termination for fiduciary duties, except the duty of confidentiality, which that goes back to the oh man, now I'm going to flunk this. That goes back to the agency form, one of the 4 options, right? Facilitator. Confidentiality is facilitator. So you basically, when you terminate your fiduciary duties, you've downgraded to a facilitator. You're still covered under one of the 4 options. And that 4th option is confidentiality as a facilitator. Terminates on the closing of the property or expiration or cancellation of the contract. All right. So I'm probably just going to let the contract sit until expiration because people kind of come and go, right? So you sign them for 6 months. Check back with them at the 3-month point if they kind of go dead, because sometimes they're just like, oh, the bank's not working with me. Whatever, give it 3 months. get back at them. Hey, have you talked with the bank? Are you still working with the bank? I can confirm. I've had people at the 3-month point jump back. I've had people at the 5-month point jump back. And we've had to modify or just cancel this and restart on that date. Right, so predatory offender, I don't even know why this shit's on here, honestly. It's annoying. So it tells the client that they can contact local law enforcement and get a list. Sweet, here's the number. Call, get a list. Go to the website, you probably get a list there too. It's kind of important, but that's like, I don't know. I pretty much, it's common knowledge, but they put a lot of common knowledge on here just in case, because common knowledge isn't so common anymore. So this is where you get the list. Entire agreement, this contract, all addenda, amendments signed by the parties shall constitute the entire agreement between buyer and broker. Any other written or oral communication, including but not limited to emails, texts, electronic communications, are not part of this contract. Your word is not legally binding. I'm sorry. We went over this in school a million times. Word is not legally binding. This contract can be modified or canceled only in writing, signed by buyer and broker, or by operation of law. All monetary sums are deemed to be United States currency for purposes of this contract. Electronic signatures, the parties agree the electronic signature of any party on any document related to this transaction constitute valid binding signatures. Consent for communication, obviously, if you're signed to me, you probably want me to call you, text you, and whatever else. But apparently somebody sued somebody for emailing or texting and like, I'm on the do not call list. Well, you signed this contract and technically you gave them a job and they're doing the job and they're trying to contact you and, say, hey, there's a really hot house that fits your agenda. Let's go. And they get sued because they're on the do not call list. So they added this probably at one point. Every time somebody gets sued, I promise you this paperwork changes because we're just trying to do our job. I'm sorry. I'm too busy most of the time to worry about trying to screw people over. So, and when something comes up, like I said, when somebody gets sued, then they add stuff. Like somebody probably got sued. Like, we went through the electronic signatures, but then I ended up not wanting the house or something bad happened after they went through and bought the house, and now the real estate agent's getting sued because we electronically signed it. I didn't agree to that. Well, according to line 123 and 124, you certainly did. Or who knows? Who knows? But anyways, and then there's others. Anything that comes up, you can add it here. Licensee signature, date, address, email, phone, accepted by, poop. Got all the info. Put it right there. Buyer, accepted by. And we done. That's it. So, you got any questions? Let me know. Otherwise, we're out of the studio, and that's Forms 3. Have a great one. We'll be back for Forms 4 in the future. Forms 4 is where we're actually going to buy a house. Otherwise, let's go back to this quick. And so, like I was saying, you put the address of this townhome right here. We're going to match this guy with that. And we're going to make a purchase order for that next stream. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back later.